Describe a great team member you worked with. Well, group work is never an easy task, and I have to tell you, I don't exactly have many good teammates. But there is one remarkable person whom I had the pleasure of working with when I was in high school. We were participating in a team project focused on environmental protection measures for high school students, and he was the leader of my team. I have to say that this guy was the epitome of an ideal team player. He was dedicated, innovative, and always willing to go the extra mile when needed. I could still remember how she would stay back after school to come up with creative ideas to engage every member of our group. So instead of just thinking about all the traditional ideas of collecting trash or recycling used boxes, he suggested we use recycled materials to create informative art installations around the school. This initiative not only caught the attention of our fellow students, but also received accolades from the teachers and other school staff. To be honest, before this project, I knew that he was a very smart kid, but I had never expected him to be this good at managing everything. So usually, he would hold a weekly group meeting and delegate us some new tasks while keeping track of all the ongoing ones seamlessly. That's not to mention how he really inspired us to keep working on this project, despite all the obstacles we had. I think it was his inspiration that really brought out the best in us. Looking back, had it not been for his outstanding contribution, we would have won the first prize for the project. Even though I lost contact with her as she moved to the US right after graduation, she still held a very special place in my heart as one of the best team members that I've ever had. Describe a person you know who likes to talk a lot. Well, the person who instantly springs to my mind when I think of this topic is my high school English teacher, Mr. Mike. I first crossed paths with him in my sophomore English class, where he taught the English literature module. As he fully embraced the idea of communicative language learning, we actually had a lot of interesting discussions, and that's how we knew our teacher really had a penchant for sharing unconventional ideas. So basically, every week, we were assigned some reading materials for us to read and prepare some discussion questions, which would be asked during a 2-hour-long session. These materials covered various topics, ranging from classic literature to contemporary social issues, but our teacher always got his own ways to connect the dots between seemingly unrelated fields. I could still remember the time when he spent almost 1 hour breaking down the underlying meaning of Shakespeare's Hamlet, and the way these lessons are still relevant in dealing with modern day's issues. But I mean, he wasn't the only one that did all the talking, though. Most of his discussions were held with a very open manner, as students like us could give our own inputs. He even encouraged us to chime in to foster an inclusive classroom environment where everyone's voice was heard and valued. That's why, even though he really talked a lot, we all enjoyed the lessons with him, and we even developed our own critical thinking and articulation skills. Looking back, I think the loquacious nature of Mr. Mike has ignited in us the interest in English literature, but more importantly, I think he inspired us to freely express our ideas with an open mindset, and trust me, that's something I feel extremely important when I start my work life. Describe a person who is good at making people feel welcome in his/her home. The person who immediately comes to mind when I think about this topic is Mrs. Hoa, my homeroom teacher during high school. She was in charge of our class for 3 years, but until the very last semester did I know that she was a gracious host. As I can vividly recall, Mrs. Nguyen invited us to her home on Teachers' Day for a cozy dinner. There were only 10 students who managed to make it to the dinner. However, Mrs. Lan still managed to make us feel welcome. As soon as we entered, she would greet us with the warmest smile, while the aroma of home-cooked food wafted through the air. At that moment, we knew that she had prepared a feast. And one thing that I noticed is that she paid attention to the little things like the background music. I honestly enjoyed the soothing classical music that she put on, which helped us feel so calm and relaxed. And that's not everything great about her dinner. Her conversation we had that day also made us feel at ease. I mean, she had something unique in her that made the whole talk so engaging. We were given the opportunity to share some stories in our lives and also listen to some funny anecdotes from my teacher. This really made us feel valued and heard. Looking back, I think the visit to Mrs. Land's house really changed my perceptions of her. I mean, in class, she was a quite strict and demanding teacher, which was probably for our own good. But she was actually so nice and kind to us. That's why I always hold her in the highest regard as a teacher.